Welcome to Ticker Talk. Today's guest is Liz Knight, esteemed Sydney Morning Herald columnist, but with a great backstory, man.
I would have to admit that I'm the accidental journalist in terms of how I got into it.
Lots of sparring with her over the years, but she was always very honourable to deal with.
The billionaires, they're all a bit crazy. They're hilarious.
She wouldn't let you off if you deserve the blowtorch treatment, but a very good journalist, very nice person.
No one's going to tell you about the fact that they're just about to go bankrupt. It's always a very carefully guarded secret. It was difficult to get the information. You had to pull it out yourself.
I think it's going to be a great episode, and hopefully she'll be telling us some story about some of those colourful entrepreneurs that she's crossed swords with over the years.
This sense of infallibility and of almost godliness.
Please join in Ticker Talk with Liz Knight.
Liz, welcome to Ticker Talk.
Thanks, Max.
Great to see you again. I don't know whether you recall the last time I saw you, but it was in London. We had dinner at a restaurant called Orso. Your husband Alex and I were both working at Macquarie, and that was around about 2002. So it's been a long time between, in this case, glasses of wine. But great to see you. Yeah,
well, I guess the glasses of wine combined with the length of time means I'm not quite sure I remember that night that well, Max.
No.
But yes.
Great to see you. And,
Thank you.
I've been following you for many years, reading your column, and it looks like you continue to go from strength to strength. The column's now in The Age as well, and the ownership with Nine is hopefully giving you better distribution or greater distribution. Life's good.
Life's good. It's great.
Yeah,
We are.
Thank you.
We're all waiting though, Liz, all your fans, for the Liz Knight show on Channel 9. I mean, when is that coming? Surely that was part of the deal.
Look, it was there. Did you miss it? I mean, it was canned after a week, so I don't think anyone actually saw the Liz Knight show.
Well, appearing on this will revive your career then.
Excellent.
But speaking of your career then, how long have you been in the media, and why the media instead of another career?
Any other place. I would have to admit that I'm the accidental journalist in terms of how I got into it. I studied economics at university and was doing my master's at a time when I was recruited to write a report because I was doing industrial relations as part of my labour economics.
In Sydney? Or
in Sydney, at Sydney Uni. And I ended up doing a report for a company called, back in those days, it still goes today, called the Women's Electoral Lobby. And it was a national wage case submission on disparity between, pay disparity. So
it's good that that's been sorted out, by the way.
Yes, and it's good that all those years later it's all right now. But what I actually did at the time was I had to do a lot of media interviews, not obviously as the media, but as the guest. And I quite sort of liked it. And so when that particular role finished, I decided to not become an economist, not to work as an economist, but to try my hand at journalism. And ultimately I applied for a cadetship at the Financial Review, which is where it all got started. So basically I have been a journalist for pretty much all my adult working life, bar a couple of years, and that's where I sort of got my big start. And they were looking at that stage. It was the first point at which the Fin was actually looking to employ graduates rather than kids that are worked up in the mailroom and copy boys and copy girls and all that sort of stuff. And they decided under the editor, who was then Alan Kohler back in those days, they decided that they actually wanted to get people that had degrees in lots of areas, not just economics or communications, but all sorts of things. So that's how I sort of started in the industry.
And you've never been tempted to go back on the other side of the fence and be the reported rather than the reporter?
I've got to say no. It's actually so much more interesting than... It is. It's a great job because you get to do all sorts of. You get to, be exposed to people that you would never normally do if you're a broker or an economist or that sort of thing. You actually get to do really extraordinary things, meet really extraordinary people from all sorts of walks of life, politicians, foreign politicians, diplomats, all sorts of stuff, to say nothing of some pretty crazy businessmen and stockbrokers for that matter, that you don't really get to do perhaps I wouldn't have been channeled into a job that economics wouldn't have channeled me into perhaps more of a backroom role. I like being in the front room.
So what year was that you joined the AFR?
I joined the AFR just after the crash.
In 87, 88?
So, yeah, 87, 88.
Okay.
88 probably.
And what was the role you were doing? What was the job?
Well, they actually, because of the stuff with the women's electoral lobby, and it was a bit of a political role, they actually employed me to do state politics.
Wow. Okay.
So, and I was just about to do that, and then they had an opening, and they threw me temporarily into court reporting.
Yes.
So I was doing some really big, super big cases, didn't have any shorthand, and so was really struggling. Mm-hmm. And eventually I landed on doing media and marketing.
Okay.
So I sort of went immediately into my own business, to reporting on my own business, which I've got to say back in those days was not easy.
Mm. Now, during that period, there was a lot of turmoil in your employer as well, that had just been effectively taken over by Warwick Fairfax.
Exactly.
With
and
a
that's,
huge
and
amount
that's
of
the
debt.
era in which we were basically bankrupt.
Yes.
We had this crazy Warwick Fairfax taking us over with Laurie Connell, the name from the
Rothwell's,
Rothwell's,
lender of last resort, as you say.
The lender of last resort.
Yes.
And so these two had banged their heads together.
Yes.
And come up with a takeover, which was a complete disaster.
Yes.
We spent half our time on strike because we had a guy who was not equipped to run it, one of Laurie's sort of blokes, henchman, being the chief executive. And, of course, the whole thing about back in those days is it was sacrosanct. Executives couldn't go anywhere near journalists and all that sort of stuff. There was a big division.
Yeah.
When it came to the
Their job was publishing, advertising, sales,
they had a
marketing.
job. Yeah, that's right. And that was there was a division between that, an enormous Chinese wall.
Absolutely.
Back in those days, which unfortunately has pretty much crumbled.
Are you
but
saying
nevertheless,
it doesn't exist anymore?
Oh yeah. Well, not like it did. Anyway,
yeah.
So we were on strike for quite a long time, saying we don't want this chairman. I can imagine doing that these days. It was a very tumultuous time when we were writing. Was the main writer, in fact, on my own troubles in my own company.
Okay,
so it was a bit of a baptism of fire because I was still pretty junior back then.
Well, that must have been one big one very early in your career.
Yeah, it was.
What have been some of the other big stories, big scandals?
Well, I mean, that was around the time that we had enormous numbers of people, big names going, bankrupted. We had the Bonds and the Connells and all those sort of guys. So the early years, first five, and it went on into the 90s, was all about corporate disasters, collapses, just, crashes.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, I sunk my teeth into really, and the kids don't do it these days, but really going through balance sheets, really going through line by line. That's what we did, because no one's going to tell you about the fact that they're just about to go bankrupt. I mean, it's always very carefully guarded secret. So it was difficult to get the information. You had to pull it out yourself, and banks were very reluctant to talk to us because that was their problem as well.
Absolutely.
Because they were exposed. So the gates have been very well and truly closed to us back in those days, but it was really good early training in how to find stories. Like, there's in my opinion, in journalism these days, there's too many drops, and people drop stuff, which is not difficult to get.
Yes.
It's dropped for a reason. It's dropped because they want the story to get a better run, all that sort of stuff. Back in those days, there was very few drops.
Yeah.
You actually had to dig and dig and dig.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, it wasn't digital back then, so you had a paper.
Well, there weren't presumably the same pressures on, one, there were more journalists, two,
Yep.
you had more time to sift, to consider, to discern whether this bit of news was worthy or not. So how does the media counter that today? How do they duplicate more of what once happened than...
Well, it's actually very hard. In fact, they are very much in a digital world. They concentrate on 24-hour journalism.
Yeah.
So we have all these journalists that they're just called breaking journalists. They don't have an area of expertise. They might be they could be thrown anything, but they have to be good at getting it up.
Yes.
Within minutes.
Okay.
So they're called breaking journalists, and there's heaps of them. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
And then there are specialist journalists, such as myself, that only work in certain areas and have certain disciplines. But yeah, that's the way it works out. So do we have time? No, we don't have time. There are far fewer of us, and we don't have that luxury of staff and time that we had pre-digital media. It's a very different beast.
Going back to the corporate collapses for a moment, and we'll probably talk a little bit later about Rupert as well and what is some of your more recent columns.
Yeah.
But News Corp was the one that managed to get through. How, did you spend much time on that, and how close was that to oblivion?
Yeah, well, I mean, Max, you know the history of that as well as I. It was down to the wire.
Yes.
And one forgets now, of course, how close Murdoch came to going under. One, I think, Canadian banker.
No, First National Bank of Pittsburgh.
Oh, Pittsburgh, yes.
Yes.
Good, well done.
Yes.
Was holding out, and it almost
And
collapsed.
this was an all-or-nothing consortium.
Yeah.
I think there was 130 banks that had to renew, and if one, and it was $3 or $4 billion, and that bank had a $10 million loan.
Yeah, tinsy exposure.
And the other banks couldn't buy them out.
Yeah. It was extremely exciting times.
Yeah.
But they came very close to it. And as people now know, Murdoch has an aversion to debt.
Yes.
And has always had, since that time.
Yes.
He's had an aversion to it. He hates owing people money for that very reason.
There was a brief period where he was very happy just to issue equity, and then he realised the dilutionary impact of that, and then we ended up with the dual class structure.
Then he discovered the dual class structure, which got over all of his problems.
Yes, yeah.
So he could keep control without actually having to issue more equity.
Yes.
By having his equity worth something and everybody else's not so much.
Exactly.
Well, then across your career, who are some of the great characters, both the good, the bad and the ugly perhaps, the most influential or the most impressive business leaders you've encountered?
Two different questions.
Okay.
Because the characters are influential, but I wouldn't sort of put them up as sort of aspirational characters necessarily. But for us, it's the characters that are immense amounts
They're what
of
your
fun.
readers want to hear about.
They do. I mean,
they generate copy, don't
modern
they?
day, well, obviously Rupert.
Yes.
Now, Rupert's a really interesting question because whenever you write about Rupert, it's really, really, really well read.
Yeah.
If I was to write about Rupert, for example, on any sort of day, it'd get more hits than something on or equal number of hits as the Prime Minister going and visiting Trump.
Yeah.
It is that
big.
popular.
Wow. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So he generates readers.
Yes.
And I think, and then it's always fun to read the comments underneath. Which you could do digitally, of course.
Yeah.
So he's the most polarising person.
Yes.
He's, the democratic antichrist.
Yes.
On the one hand.
Yeah.
And one of our most successful businessmen.
Yes.
On the other.
Absolutely.
So, and no one just doesn't care about Rupert. You've got to have an opinion, and they're completely. You love him or you hate him.
Yeah.
So that's great because the people that really like him like reading about him, and the people that hate him like reading about him.
Yeah.
And of course, the competition never writes about him because he owns them.
Yes.
So it's like there's a lot of free kicks in writing about Rupert.
And when you do write about him, Do you notice shadowy figures following you home, or heavy breathing at the end of the phone? I mean,
Actually,
what happens if anything?
There has been people out there that I would say that has happened.
Wow.
But not Rupert Murdoch. I mean, Rupert Murdoch, he knows the way the game's played.
Yes, absolutely.
And, I mean, this is the man who owns the company that was, the hacking affair in London. I mean, this guy, he's overseen a lot of pretty dodgy ways of journalists getting their information. So he would not, I don't think he'd care less. I mean, Lachlan, who I've probably had more to do with over the years, and he's always very civilised. But, but there's a healthy competition also between that goes back generations between those two news organisations. Yeah. But going back to your question, it's the billionaires that are a bit, and they're all a bit crazy. I mean, that's what you find. I mean, they don't get to be like that unless they're a bit crazy.
It's that genius element, isn't it?
Some of it's the genius, some of it's just the out there. Some of it is
the risk taking.
To have that sort of attitude that says I can go and do this. Yeah. I mean, 9 times out of 10 that it fails. Yeah. But that's the guy that was the one, or 99 times out of 100 it fails for everybody else. If he's actually, and then of course they get a sort of, because they're successful, this sense of infallibility and of almost godliness. Yes. That they, narcissistic perhaps, but that's the way they sort of present, and that's what you get at the end of it. And
people tell them that as well, don't they? Which helps build it. People around them.
People around them,
absolutely.
they're like, the Donald Trump's people. They work out how to make them happy. And for people that say, I really like it when I'm told the truth, well, that's just crap.
Yep. Yeah.
They don't. I mean, they get there and you tell them what they want to hear. And if you disagree, you do it in a very careful way. So to interview these people is fun. And I'm talking, the Gina Rineharts, the Kerry Stokes, the Andrew Forrests.
Yes.
I mean, they're hilarious.
Yeah.
Have they changed over the years? Obviously, they're in different businesses, but can you see the same traits, the same characteristics?
Yes, I can. And I would say someone like Kerry Stokes, the way I've noticed, and that's one who I think has changed. I think the other two that I mentioned probably haven't so much. They've always just been those larger-than-life characters.
Yeah.
Kerry's become, I think...
Grandee? Like a grandee?
I think he's become crankier.
Oh, right.
Actually,
okay. Oh, wow.
Over the years.
Okay.
I mean, you find a lot of times, the older, when they get quite old, and now he's well into his 80s.
Yes.
They do get a bit cranky.
Yeah.
But also sort of quite sort of strident about, like his support of Ben Roberts-Smith and stuff.
Yes.
Like things that are not really sort of what we could consider politically correct.
Yeah.
Where he's just said, no, this is what I think. And they become sort of quite set, quite strident. I think he's more like that now than maybe he was, say, 15, 20 years ago. He was a bit more laid back.
Yeah.
But, no, they are what they are. I mean, they're all a little bit mad.
Mm. Well, Billionaires and Rupert, I'm sure the three of us could talk all day on that. We're going to take a short break with a word from our sponsor, and we'll be back in a minute. Thanks, Liz.
Ticker Talk, sponsored by the National Stock Exchange of Australia, the leading exchange for scale-ups and startups. Follow us on LinkedIn.
Liz, so, away from work, when you're not bringing down captains of industry with your piercing columns, what do you do? What's Liz like on the weekends?
Yeah, well, I tell you what I do every day. I will travel 10 kilometres, not in a car, either running or walking. Yeah. So I think it's really important because working to a deadline sort of requires certain anxiety levels to be maintained over a period of hours. And so I think it's really important to walk or run that off at the end of the day. And
do you have things in your ear when you're doing that, or you like to be head clear?
I used to do it listening to podcasts.
Mm.
I sometimes still do it listening to ABC News 24, just in case I miss something. I think, oh, my God, I've got to ring the office. But music, to the extent that I can, particularly on weekends, it'll be music.
Yep.
Or that the drone of the husband standing beside me going for the walk, of course, will also be in my ears.
That's a noise cancelling.
That's a noise cancelling thing, yeah. So, I mean, that would be thing number one that, I have to travel quite a bit. So there's a bit of travel involved, and my husband also travels. So we do a lot of that. And I've just finished a 4-year, 2 years we were out of renovation. So that has been all-consuming.
Yeah.
So I don't remember life pre-reno.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
I mean, that was just filled with kids. That was that. Look,
So you're looking for a new
easier than
project.
renovation.
You're looking for a new project.
Yeah. So I've got to say, I really do enjoy sort of after I finish actually not having to do anything. I mean, I've always got to keep up with my emails. So you dip in and out and all that sort of stuff, or then I go and watch Succession for the second time. Maybe now for the third time.
Maybe for the third time.
But you're not a book reader. Well, I'm sure you are a book reader, but you're not writing a book. You're not. You do extreme
honestly,
sports. Are you?
Do I cycle down to Wollongong?
Well, other than working and walking and renovating homes. And that's full enough, I guess.
I mean, actually, especially when the renovation was going on, there was not a spare second to do absolutely anything else. And as I said, we do travel quite a lot. So, and I read as well, but I can't. And we go out. We love our dinners. We love our parties. I love cooking, so we entertain a lot at home. But no, nothing all that. I don't bungee jump.
Okay. So that wasn't you.
That wasn't me.
Okay, right.
No, that was a deep fake.
Yes.
Yeah. So I wish I could give you a much more exciting.
I want the truth. Don't make up.
Dull.
Don't make things up for me.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, moving back to your career then, the bridge from the AFR to the Sydney Morning Herald.
Yeah.
What happened? How did that happen? And that was that was really your own column. That's your opportunity really to tell the world with an opinion of what you're seeing, which is very different from day-to-day journalism, breaking the news.
Yeah. So that's right. Then I went into actually that came about because I had just had my first child.
Yes. Okay.
And we were juggling a very young child, and back in those days, of course, deadlines were 9:00 at night. So most young first mothers with newborns don't get home from work at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, but they were my hours. So I tried to I was a breaking news journalist at the Fin.
Yes.
That's what I did. That's what I loved. But when you had to leave at 5 or 6 o'clock at night, that sort of didn't work. So I tried to recast my job with my then editor, John Alexander, and he wouldn't let me become a features writer, which is what I wanted to do. So the Herald thought, if we can get her to do and keep her happy writing features for a little while until that baby's older, we can get her back cracking on that news. So I got poached by the Sydney Morning Herald with a much more user-friendly editor.
Yep.
Who let me have that flexibility for a year or two until the child was old enough to go then. And then he said, actually, we'd like you to do columns.
So it's not as if you've had to have 19 children so that you never had to go back to the breaking news and the ungodly hours. You're saying they actually saw the light and...
Well, I've got to say, even with the columns, but back in the early days, the column I had to be in at 8:30 at night too. So that was your deadline. But it was, you're a bit more flexible. Breaking news is totally inflexible and outside your control, whereas columns can be a little bit more inside your control. But as with everybody, work expands to fit time. If the deadline's 8:30, you're never going to get it in at 7.
Yeah.
So, so that's what started me writing columns. And of course, those were in the good old days also when it wasn't a problem for you to talk to executives. You could call them.
Yeah.
You could talk to directors.
Yes.
NEDs, right?
Yeah.
These days, of course, everything's stage managed.
Yes.
You can't do that.
Yes.
So you could actually get to know them quite well. You had all their home phone numbers, you had their
Yep.
mobile numbers, you could do all that sort of stuff. Whereas these days, there are so many rules and regulations about what disclosure regulations about what they can say that they don't tend to do that. They're constrained by public relations on the one hand, getting out a structured story, and lawyers on the other.
So how's that changing then how you work and what you're producing? Is it leading to better, worse, or just different copy?
It's actually really interesting because back in the day when you were writing a story, let's say I was writing a story about the ASX, I would ring Matthew, or I would ring...
And he'd give you a quote.
Yeah, no, he'd say, I'll get back to you, and then he'd send me an email 2 hours later. But you basically, if it was a day that they had an announcement, then the chief executive would be set up to talk to you.
Yeah.
And you might ring a few analysts if they happen to, all that sort of stuff. It was really sort of, and in the end, I sort of decided that, in fact, talking to chief executives had become more of a problem
Yes.
than a help.
Yeah.
Because public relations and, the message had become so massaged that the only thing I was going to get from the chief executive were his talking notes.
Yes.
And they'd become very well trained in how to stick to those notes and not actually have an open conversation. And so they became more of a hindrance than they became a help. And I actually found that I think my writing style got better the less I did all the formal things. I mean, I'd still, if they want to do an interview, I'll still do it because I think it's appropriate to do it, but I won't really pay much attention to what they say.
When I started at ASX, I think I offended Matthew in our first few meetings, particularly if I introduced him to anyone as a PR person. I was told off, no.
Communications.
This is communications, so
Yeah.
I was a newbie. But
Well, trust, I always thought we're in the trust business. That's what we're
Yes.
selling.
Yeah.
That's what people are buying or not. Trust.
yeah.
Trust. Not PR.
That sounds like PR spin to me.
Oh, I was just going to say,
But trust.
try and actually tell me how PR and trust intersect. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. But I think you would understand what I'm talking about
Indeed.
as well.
Yeah.
That it's become quite cookie cutter in the way that it's delivered to us. So trying to, and also we're human beings, right? So if you are talking to a chief executive and they're being very nice to you, it's harder
Yeah.
to give them a slap.
Yep.
It just is. So it all sort of works on the communications side of things, but it really, I don't think, works particularly well at all on the journalism side of things.
No. Makes
The
for
media side of things.
boring copy.
Makes
Yeah,
for boring copy. And honestly, these days, the media has changed so much with the onset of digital media because now, for years, we curated
Yep.
what you read.
Yes.
Now you curate what we write.
Yes.
So we know it was hit and miss before it was measurable. So now, of course, we don't just know how many people are reading it. We know who they are.
Yes.
We know how long they're reading it. We know how far through they got. Did they get 50% through? Did they get all the way through?
Yeah.
What amount of time did that take? Was it a 2-minute read or a 3-minute read? So we have the metrics down to, what time that person goes to bed every night and when they're having an affair with somebody. We know those people so intimately. So we know what they like.
Yeah.
And back in the day, of course, we didn't know we just wrote what we liked.
Yes.
And we curated what they read.
Yeah.
And we don't know how many of them ever read it.
No.
Now, I mean, we're their slaves.
Yeah.
But that's also part, I think, of what has changed is that there's been a general disintermediation, including in the media, and it's not the full reason, but one reason why, of course, chief executive perhaps don't speak to journalists as they may have in the past is insofar as talking to Liz Knight was a way to get to my customers or my stakeholders broadly. They can do that by other means now. I think it's more than just that, but that's one change.
Yeah, I think, certainly there are a lot of different ways I think, for example, of course, they could all have their X accounts, but they sort of don't. And even if you look at them in LinkedIn, they don't say anything.
No, it's all
just somebody else has manicured
and,
that. And, I think I think they like the fact that they don't have to deal with us and they do still deal with us, but it's very much at the behest of the company. It's when the company wants to talk about it, they decide what they'll say, they'll decide when they'll say it, and we might have dinner, once every 6 months or once every year, and that's all sort of stage managed as well.
Yes.
But you're not sort of popping off to have a drink with them after work and hearing what went on, which is something you could have done 20 years ago.
Yes.
That just doesn't happen.
Yes.
Liz, we're going to now run through the last bit of our show, Ticker Talk. We love to talk about props, and we've invited you to bring a prop or two to tell us a little bit about Liz Knight, the person.
Yep.
Yeah.
So shall I get to? Well,
Yes.
I'm multi-propped today.
You're multi-propped. We love multi-propping.
Yeah. So first thing.
Yes.
Now that
Long back,
is
please.
actually this morning's.
Yes.
So I didn't make that up. I
Yeah.
have 3 in the morning,
Okay.
3 a day.
That's
And they've
3 in
even
the
got
morning.
lipstick stains on them
yeah.
you can see which one I had
that's
first.
That's 3, not 3 a.m. No.
No,
Yeah,
but three
three
in the
full
morning.
cups of coffee in
Yeah.
the morning, and I
only in the morning.
only in the morning, and I cannot start my day without that.
Okay,
Like
yeah.
I can't wake up without that.
What's your choice brew?
That's their cafe lattes.
Okay.
They're lattes, yeah,
Yes.
and they're always skim milk because I have so many of them.
Yes.
So that's thing one. Now but obviously that is a necessary part of the day.
Yes.
But I also, in terms of, when I'm doing things during the day, these are my work tools, which
Yes.
are belt braces and another set of braces. So the belt is, of course, the mobile phone that also has everything on it, but it
Yep.
also has as a tape recorder.
Yep.
Right?
Okay.
So for when that fails or I'm doing something really important that I've got to, that's the old version
Yes.
of a tape recorder.
Is that a
The
backup?
young'uns, have you not seen anything like this? That's a backup. That is
Yeah.
actually a digital tape recorder. But in case it runs out of batteries,
I was waiting
this
for
is
the
number 3.
old
Number
school.
3.
Old
Okay.
school.
Very
This is the
good.
oldest
Very
of old
good.
school. And this is, never leave home.
Have you
But no
kept-
Without
shorthand. But no shorthand.
I actually didn't do shorthand
Yes.
because in the end, they didn't make me do that in the cadetship because I was in the first stage of cadetships
Okay.
where we were coming through as graduates.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so they didn't. I didn't. So these things are very useful for me, and I do actually also have I do a pretty good line in scribble,
Yes. Yes.
longhand scribble, and have created my own shorthand. I don't
Yeah.
think it'll be adopted by anybody,
your
but
own code? Have you
yes.
got all of the notebooks that you've ever used?
oh my God, Matthew, there isn't a. There is. I go through.
There isn't a facility large enough. on
large
Earth.
enough. The state library would not be large enough. When they moved from, I can't remember which building it was to which, I didn't realise this, but the librarians, there used to be lots of librarians at the at 9 or Fairfax back in the day, they used to cut out the columns and put them in a book, like a massive sort of just
Scrapbook.
scrapbook.
Yeah, yeah.
They scrapbooked them. And when they left one of the buildings, they handed to me
The Liz Knight scrapbook.
the Liz Knight scrapbook.
Yeah.
Because we got rid of our old library facilities. We got rid of our library when we went digital. And there would have been enough to fill half of this room. These are massive scrapbooks. So I felt I had to bring them home because
Indeed.
it felt really bad form to actually throw them out. At the end of the last reno, I'd had enough. They
Yep.
went to the tip.
Liz, surely. I was waiting for
Oh.
you to say available at all good bookshops.
Oh my God.
dear.
There are so many.
Now, the final thing.
Final.
And by the way, do you have them consecutively after one another, immediately after one another? Not
Yep.
not
3 in a row.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
So why don't you just get can I have
I think they
barrel
taste,
of coffee,
I think
please?
they taste differently in one thing. Yeah. It's
I
just-
like that size.
Yeah,
I don't
it's a
like
good
large.
size. And
They'll
of course,
get the
I'm at
milk
home,
balance
so I can
wrong.
put it in the
or-
microwave if I get diverted.
You can also sneak in, and there's no shame. It looks like, oh, there's Liz. She's so generous. Every morning she's buying 2 cups of coffee for someone
I
else.
thought that's what we were getting greeted with. So,
well,
Yeah,
anyway,
I know.
next
People
time.
do get disappointed when I walk in the room.
Very good. Now, some quick, fast fire questions and answers.
fire
You can
questions.
take your time answering
I can
them
say no,
if you
or-
wish.
Yeah,
Yes, you can
no
say
comment.
pass, move on.
No comment.
We can bleep.
You'll hear
if
my
you
lawyer
wanna-
from my
if
lawyers.
there's an expletive deleted.
Yeah.
If you could swap jobs with anyone for a day or longer, who would it be?
Oh my God.
Your editor?
You know, no. Oh, that would be the world's worst job. No, I think if I came back in another, I would really like to be an actor.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why I say that. Just because they look like they have an incredibly fun, different life.
Well, it begs the question, though: which actress or actor would you do you most admire currently? Then
Look,
Who do you
I
think
was
is most like
prepared
you?
for the best businessman, but
Okay,
not prepared
okay.
for the best
Okay,
actress.
come back to us
I'll
on
have
that.
to come back to you on that. Kate Blanchett, yeah, maybe.
We touched on this, but you didn't quite give us a comprehensive answer. Who's the most impressive person you've ever met?
Oh, gee, impressive. Oh, gee, I'm going to have to.
It could be in any field.
You know, the most impressive people I've met, I think, have not been business people.
Yeah.
To be honest, I did a series. I don't know why I was asked to do this series on risk takers once, and I met people from sport. I tell you who I do like, who I think is a really good, is Richard Branson. I have always liked. People say some people think he's a bit flaky, but in fact he's not at all.
Yeah.
And I love the way he innovates.
Yeah.
I love his innovation. So he would be the most impressive business person I've met. But there are a few other. I actually wrote, because you mentioned this. So I wrote 3 current Australian chief executives that I rate.
Yes.
I'm not saying they've reinvented the wheel. Now I'm just sort of thinking Rob Scott from Wes Farmers.
Wes Farmers, yes.
I think actually 2. Rob Scott from Wes Farmers would be number 1, and I think Matt Common
Yes.
from CBA are both they've got fabulous assets to play with, but they've done the right thing with those assets, and it's quite easy to screw things up.
Yeah.
And I think particularly Rob, the way that those media assets are managed is sort of is good, solid. And also they take slightly longer term views. They take a few risks along the way, suck it and see what it's like, you know. So I think that they would be 2 of the current chief executives.
Well, I don't think
would
you'll
rate.
be having access problems getting the CEOs of Wes Farmers or CBA now.
On that
That's
note,
right.
thanks, Liz. I think we need to call it there. But
Excellent.
thanks for coming to Ticker Talk, and
pleasure,
we
Max.
look forward to reading your columns in the Herald for years to come.
Oh, excellent.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Liz.
Matt.